I'm Dr. Muriel Petioni, retired physician. I practiced in New York from 1950 to 1990. Had a family practice of low income, the working poor, a few middle class and upper middle class, but my main thrust was the people on public assistance and working poor, lower middle class. I was born in Trinidad, came to this country with my mother in 1919. My father preceded us in 1918. Came to America, of course, in those days we said the streets were full of milk and honey. And that was the beginning of the migration from the West Indies. Anyway, the migration was going on from Europe, other places for a long time. But people started coming to the West Indies in the teens, 20s, 30s. And then, of course, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Mm-hmm. But we were some of the earlier immigrants from the West Indies. We came to Trinidad. My father was a journalist in Trinidad and was very anti-colonial, as many of the thinking people were at that time, and was plugging for the independence of the West Indies and the independence of the African countries. So, being a newspaper man, he worked for some of the best newspapers in Trinidad, and he wrote about his anti-colonial feelings. So, young and trying to do it respectfully, but how can you be respectful when you're talking against the government? So he was finally asked to leave. If you continue writing like that, you will not only have a job, but your family won't have a job. At that time, my mother was working as a clerk in the largest department store in Trinidad, Waterman's department store. And so he decided that he'd come to America, study, and become a physician, because as a physician he'd be independent. Wouldn't have to ask anybody for a job. And as a physician, people always need a physician. They may not need lawyers or preachers or anybody, but always, so that even if he didn't make any money, you could barter his services for what he needed. So he came here and worked at the jobs were available at that time to almost any foreigner. There were menial jobs, elevator runner, porter, stockman. Went to City College at night, got his pre-med work, and then went to Howard University for his medical degree. He came in 18 during the war, World War I. The war was still going on for a few months. And he worked for a while during the war. It was just a few months. Getting up on the shipbuilding. You know, those ships was many, many stories high. And I still can't envision my father working on a skeleton ship. I really cannot, because he said he had to get up on the rafters with a cup in his hand, and they'd throw the cup, he'd have to catch the bolts, and he'd have to screw them in the various things, so it was like an assembly line. And people falling down all the time, ambulances running all the time, people fall off. But he survived that and then went on to these other jobs, and as I said, went to City College in the evening, and at that time it was free. All you had to do was show up and buy books. We joined him in 1919, a year after, and we settled in 131st Street, 26. I still go and look at that building now. 5-foot floor walk up, 3 apartments each floor with the railroad apartments. You know, you go in one door and there's another door. We were at 26 for many years until he finished medicine and practiced. I think he practiced for about a year after he came back. He finished in 25. By 27, he had saved enough money to put down on a brownstone in the next block, 114. And When I was 12, we moved into the brownstone at 114 West on Third, where he had an office. It was a home office. He had an office. We lived in part of it, and we rented part of it out. And that's what many of the doctors did in those days. They would buy a house which enabled them to live in there, have the office there, and rent a part out. Many, particularly the West Indians did that.